Awesome.
This is a very mature podcast today.
Welcome to the Simple Youth Ministry podcast. This live recording is brought to you by Doug Fields, Josh Griffin, Natalie Johnson, and Matt McGill. This Feast for the Ears has just enough youth ministry so you don't feel guilty for listening. Be warned, this podcast is not for the faint of heart or the mentally weak. Since that describes most of humanity, you may want to go ahead and turn it off right now.
It feels like it should fade right now. Huh? Nope, it feels like after he talks a little bit, that it should fade.
Enjoyable stuff right now.
Huh?
Got like 10 seconds.
People actually listen to the show for the music.
Mentally weak. Mentally weak. Mentally weak. Mentally weak.
Sorry, Miss Jackson.
There it is.
Wow.
Oh man! Now
Now
it
we're
was worth.
cooking.
It was worth wearing headphones for that.
Absolutely, that was impressive.
That was great. McGill is back.
Well, I just heard a little classical music this week on the radio,
It was
and
nice.
it made me want to do that.
Hey
Very,
everybody!
very nice.
It is episode 46. Doug Fields here with Josh,
Hello.
Natalie, and Matt.
Hello.
And we have a special guest in the house.
Andy Brazelton.
We
Nadim,
have,
the sound engineer.
we have Jason Carson.
Just get on camera so people can see you.
Yeah, if you're watching video, there he is. There's Jason. Now, Jason is a youth pastor down the street, about 4 miles from us here, and a great guy. We've actually talked about you on the show before, haven't we?
Yeah.
At least
I
one.
know.
Great hair.
I talk about him a lot
Great
because
drummer.
Cody, my son, loves him dearly, and he's a great youth pastor.
Actually, I think
And-
that's the context that we talked about.
And he was also the original drummer for the Supertones.
There you go.
Did you
There
ever
you
make?
have it, guys.
Did you ever make coin off that?
A lot.
You did.
A ton. No.
He's a millionaire.
A couple. He made a couple.
That's nice.
Yeah,
Made a couple coins.
but obviously you went. I could be a drummer for the Supertones and go all over the world, or I could be a youth pastor.
Yes.
Well,
It took a pay cut.
well, it's great to
That's
have you
awesome.
here. Hey, we got a lot of emails. Here's
Yes.
what I decided this morning about emails. I was telling Kathy.
Yeah.
She joined me for my breakfast podcast email reading, sorting that Josh doesn't really do for me. But
Where does that take place?
well, it took place at Wiener Schnitzel this morning. She stopped by Bagels and Brew and bought
She
a
got real
bagel,
breakfast, and then you.
and then I had this. So
That's all you
there
had for
are.
breakfast
We
today?
still have. I still have months of emails, but I told her the emails fall into categories of ones. You know, I read last week anything that was sent in this week,
Yeah.
and I go, okay, that we can use that. That's fresh. We need to use that. Then I have a pile of questions that are really good questions that we're just clicking through and getting to.
Yep.
And then there is the pile of that are so long.
Yeah, the never pile.
It's
or
not a never pile because
maybe?
there's great questions in there, but it's so much work to read through it to discern the question.
Yeah.
Then when I go back to read it again, I have got to read it again, and I
Yeah.
mean, anyway.
That feels
It's
like
almost
a never
encyclopedic. It's
Okay,
so
I'm going to take
big.
the headphones off now that I've heard the
Actually,
intro.
that's
Matt, I love that. I love the feast for the ears, the mentally weak. I love that.
Okay.
Got a lot of emails that people enjoyed having Jake here and Miss Natalie. Jake is somewhere this week, and he's at spring training, I think.
Yeah,
he
he
is
spring
wa-
training in
the
Arizona.
Citrus League. No, what is it called? For
Grapefruit League.
Grapefruit League.
Yeah. Citrus, grapefruit. You know what?
Yeah,
You're in
oranges.
Maybe the Citrus League is down in Vero Beach with the Dodgers.
Maybe.
You just weren't comparing apples to apples.
No.
Yeah. But
Citruses.
we got a lot of comments on episode 45, which was our failure
That was
stories.
a good show.
It's a good show. A lot of failure stories. A lot of people appreciating that. And I think we need to give props to our good buddy Rob Cunningham from Antelope Christian Center in Antelope,
Hey,
California,
Rob.
because he's the one that wrote,
Here's a prop.
Doug, what have been your 3 biggest failures in ministry, and what'd you learn from them? And then we said, hey, why don't we just do a failure show?
Yeah.
So, Rob, thank you very much.
Rob, write in with your next idea.
Got
We'll
an
base a show around
yeah.
whatever
There you
say.
go.
Yeah.
Got an email from Scott Ball. Speaking of Ball, what are we doing with that?
I was told to hold it. And Josh was throwing against the wall, and it was quite
Okay,
annoying.
so for those of you that aren't watching, it's a small little
little
basketball.
Nike blue.
Yes.
Okay.
One that I can palm with my sausage
It
fingers.
was the star of a film we made this week,
Okay, I don't know anything about
which
this.
will be premiering
That-
on Monday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the basketball is in the film that you guys made that we're premiering.
It's like we have a celebrity in the room.
It
Not
is.
only Jason Carson, we also have the star of an upcoming Simply Mystery video.
We have Super Tones and Super Ball.
Bingo.
Ooh.
All right.
That's right.
Scott Ball,
Both
middle
have
school
great hair.
minister, First Christian Church, Johnson City. Where is Johnson City?
I don't know, but that's my last name.
All right.
You have the word city in your last
He
name?
says, every
I
week,
should.
every
Love
week,
it.
all of you are
Johnson
drinking
City.
Coca-Cola Propel water. Not all of you, so he's not as observant because I am never drinking that. I'm always highly.
Well,
loaded with
never
the
is a
Lord's-
strong word, but
Yeah, I drink it.
yeah.
Just not really here. Have you ever considered gaining an endorsement from them?
We have.
With however many thousand people downloading the podcast, it'd certainly be worth their buck. Maybe they'd even provide the water for free. Just a thought. Here's what I thought. It is worth their buck because they get free advertising and because we don't.
Yeah, we haven't called them. We really
Yeah,
should.
well- Here's
I
the
think
other part
Josh
of it.
Who's
should
gonna do
because
that?
He could really pull it off.
Josh
nicely.
would be great at doing that.
How would you
Great.
even begin to consider that, Josh?
I would just call him and say, guys,
We could
11
do
people watch our show.
A number of impressions and the number of shows we've done,
Oh,
right?
interesting.
Nice.
One
So
pack
basically-
of water a week.
Basically, since you have so
Like
much energy towards it,
Coca-Cola.
why don't you head this one up?
Here we go. I just thought it was
No.
an interesting
All
idea.
you.
Sponsorship, because it's
Yeah.
amazing that
Yeah.
Brazelton hasn't. Andy hasn't tried to figure that one
I
out.
can't believe we don't have advertising littered throughout. I
Well,
mean, really.
Speaking of which, I found this in the bathroom today at Simply Youth Ministry, and who do you think this made me think of?
Oh gosh, the picture or the
Blogging
title?
No.
for dollars.
The title is called "Blogging for Dollars."
Yes.
Who did I think of immediately when I
Well,
saw
either
it?
Andy.
Josh or Brazel, but probably
The blogging
Josh.
was Josh for dollars, Brazel.
No, I'm blogging for dollars. This guy makes $60,000. How much do you make a month for blogging? And how do you make money? Because I don't really get it.
I probably make
Google AdWords.
$300 a month.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I don't
Google
make
AdWords
any.
is about $5, $5 a day
Yeah.
for Google AdWords, and then Amazon.com and whatever too.
Huh.
Yeah. So go to my site,
Click
click on everything. Every link this week is going to be my blog, and it's going to say click on all my ads.
No,
Okay.
they can track
Oh,
that
that is
stuff.
unbelievable.
And
Yeah,
you,
don't really,
you
don't
get no
really.
points
You,
for that.
you could click occasionally, but don't click a bunch because then it's click fraud and blah blah.
But I literally, I
Ah.
have the
Click
same
on
thing
what
on
you're
my
interested in.
site.
so click
I
on what you're
haven't
interested in.
gotten
That's
a
that's
single
great.
dollar.
Click on what you're interested in.
Yeah.
is the
So $300. I mean, it used to
integrity
be.
approach.
Jason, have you ever heard of click fraud before?
Never.
Have you ever heard of pocket
Bring it.
dialing?
I've never heard of blogging.
Pocket
Now you
dialing
sound
is
like
cool.
me.
Pocket dialing is cool.
Yeah, somebody
learn
told
What
me
is
today-
pocket dialing?
Pocket dialing is when you put your phone in your pocket and you call somebody from your pocket accidentally.
And it happened this week. Doug
Oh,
actually called me this week on my
accidentally.
voicemail.
Oh, I didn't know
It
there was a name for that.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure there is.
I
I think
had-
they just
So
made
I've
that
heard
up.
of other things happening in the pocket.
I was calling Andy from my lap, just in my lap at my desk for a while, and blocking my number.
What did you?
That was a good get, because he'd go, "This is Andy. Hello?" I did it for like 3
And
months.
you were calling me. I love it.
Kind of like The Office. Okay, here's an email.
It
You know,
was
we did
great.
our stories. Jason, you haven't listened to last week's show, but Josh, in front of 1,100 people, it was trying to talk about an eye contact. Instead of saying suck an eye contact, he said suck a condom, and we just talked about that last week.
And I might never live that down
Well,
because of the show.
this guy writes in and he says that he got an early morning 5:30. He was like MOD, which is Minister of the Day. 5:30. He's got to go to the hospital and pray for this family. And he says it was
The Lord's not even
an
awake at
African American
5:30.
family when he went to the hospital, and it was an African American family, and he was praying, and he used the words sisters and brothers in the prayer. He says, "I pray for my brothers and sisters." Well, he meant
In Christ.
like in Christ, but he said there was just this awkward tension there that they're going, okay, who's this white guy, in a prayer calling us sisters in
brother.
Christ?
I love embarrassing moments like
That's
that.
funny.
He says, I just turned on episode 45 and was filled with excitement as Doug begins to read my sincere email to Josh about how much I missed him on the podcast while he was away. My excitement turned to total sadness as Doug crushed my email into a tiny ball. The greatest moment for those of us watching the podcast is to hear our names called as our emails are read and given momentary consideration. My excitement returned as Doug almost uncrumbles the email and says, "This is from Chuck." Pause. Then during the pause, Jake interrupts and the paper crumble begins again. Thanks for the emotional roller coaster. I stopped the podcast to type this email and take a moment of silence. I will now resume watching the podcast in a mat-like posture of sadness.
This one?
Wait, so do we know his last? Did we say his last name?
No, he didn't say
No.
it. That's
Hi, Chuck. Hi, Chuck.
Better go to the house of mourning.
There is, Jason, you would appreciate this because you are the king of leading kids in worship and developing bands, and we actually just flew Jason out to Indianapolis at our group Simply Youth Ministry Conference where he taught a seminar and did a fabulous job. Somewhere in one of the podcasts, we put a worship application online.
Yeah.
Was that a couple weeks ago?
2 shows ago, 43. We talked about the crud form from Taffy.
Yeah. And I'm sure you know that. You have the same thing where it's kind of raising the bar, expectations, the whole bit. This is from Josh Pease of Oakwood Baptist Church in New Braunfels, Texas. He says, I want to take a moment to thank you guys for making your student worship team application available. Holding our student volunteers accountable is an area we've struggled with in our ministry, and this resource is going to be very helpful. Having said that, my favorite part of the application is the last page where it lists Taffy and Elena's contact information, including cell phone numbers, and then says, and I quote, "Please do not give these cell phone numbers out. These are just for you."
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic.
So Josh,
I never even opened it. Taffy sent it to me and said, "Here you go." I zipped it up, stuck it on the web.
Andy, that is the reason when you ask about things going on the website that come from all over the entire world that I say, has anybody read them? Have we done any quality control? Have we done any check at all? And Andy says,
the reason is
no.
someone on your own team?
Well, I would
That's
throw this
sad.
back, though, on them, don't you think?
No.
You could if you wanted to be lame, which spells blame.
Oh, man.
What just happened right there?
I don't know.
Lame. Okay, so Josh, would you please fix that?
I'd be happy to.
Would you fix that today before people listen to this and then?
All right, so if you download it now,
yeah,
it'll be different.
Yeah.
Here is another one. Well, here's the use of our resources. Andy, how many freebies do we have on our website? Hundreds?
1,000 maybe?
1,000 maybe?
A billion.
This one comes from Jeff Kennedy, First Presbyterian Church, Burlingame, California, and he used that. He used the crud resource, and he said, "We're going to set expectations from the start."
Get on him.
Oh,
have everybody call Taffy.
No.
No, that's actually why I read the email so that people wouldn't.
Don't call Taffy.
That would be a. Oh, what a total waste of time. Anyway,
I think it's kind of.
I think let's give Natalie's cell phone number.
Cell phone number away.
We'll put it on the screen right now.
I never answer my phone anyhow,
There
so
you
call
go.
away, leave me a message.
We should give Natalie's
Anyway,
phone
this
phone
guy
out.
says we're going to set high expectations
answer
from the
that
start,
either.
spiritual
Big
maturity, servants' hearts, rehearsal commitments, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, got that. It's great.
And that's going to the
Super.
Never Gonna Read It podcast.
Jay Beerley, Minister of Students, First Baptist Church, Jolton, Tennessee. And then I put a question mark by this because I don't get this. Okay, so you're telling me someone has the software to mix together a song about the need for Snapshot, but can't afford to just subscribe? Misplaced priorities. Oh, well, kudos to them for entertaining
Okay,
me.
you
Now,
might-
this got
That's
an Andy
funny.
cackle.
Yeah.
Really? Cackle?
I heard a cackle.
That was
Oh,
a small
I thought you
cackle.
said his name was Cackle.
So what do you mean he has
Okay, we did a contest where people could write a song
the...
about snapshots, submit it to us, and then we would do a
We'd
little
pick a
contest. The
winner.
best song wins.
Have we
And
done that yet?
It's
Yeah.
already done, and it was brilliant. We got a good number of entries. About 10 of them were fantastic, and 2 of them, 2
Were
or
stellar?
3 were
Amazing.
really.
Yeah.
When are we going to reveal the winners?
We did. If you go to the Snapshot page on Simply Ministry, you will listen to it.
You'd think that I would know something about this. Don't you?
You'd think.
You know what? Here's what happened, I think.
There's just so many great things happening around here.
I think I tried to download one of the songs, and would it send me to the freebie deal? Would it send?
No.
Would it have sent me somewhere where I would have just went, forget it, this is too much work?
Not at all.
That's what it did, though.
That is what happened. That is exactly what happened.
It sent me. So I tried. There was about 3 listed. I went to click on one, and I had to drive to Arizona to.
Solidary Ranch.
You had to install Real Player.
It was like a scavenger hunt to find them. No, they're
We
really
hit
easy. And a
Easter
couple
eggs
of
all
them.
over the site.
We announced the winner on the site, Amanda Bond, I think is her name, and
Why don't we
she
play
was
the
brilliant.
song next week here on the
Great.
podcast?
Great,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or we
maybe-
could
I'm
just
sure
tack
she'd
it to
love
the end of
that.
the podcast.
or we could just throw them on in the podcast feed, and everyone can enjoy the top 2 or 3 that we.
Or again, they could just go to Snapshot.
Or why don't we have a video of
.com.
me trying to find the song?
Really.
All right, here's a question.
About an hour-long video.
Look at Andy's techie joke from the corner.
Nothing like a bandwidth.
really
joke.
liked
Okay,
that
let me
one.
just
You
pause. We got a bunch of questions. Let me just pause and tell you how much I hate Andy.
Oh.
Welcome to the club.
So,
Welcome to the club.
so
all
we're running a
members.
marathon. Okay, Jason, I'm doing a marathon in
4 weeks.
No, not 4 weeks.
Is it
Full
the
marathon?
sea-
Like
Full marathon.
Like the
Sea
Greek
Otter's different.
26-mile one?
26.4,
Kilometers or
right?
something?
2. And it's been a life goal since I was in high school, but I should have ran it when I was in my 20s, not in my 40s. Anyway, so Andy's running it as well, and he says, "Hey, we got a long run," which wasn't a total long run. Tomorrow's 15 miles, but Monday was going to be 8, and it was 96 degrees
It's
on
been
Monday.
hot. Very, very hot.
So I say to Andy, comes over to my
Run
house, and I
underwater.
said, is there any hills? And here's in front of my kids and family,
got
Uncle
witnesses on
Andy.
this,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Jesus was there.
He says, "Oh, there's some slight undulations." Those were his exact words. Slight
Wait,
undulations.
who says slight undulations? First of all,
Andy. So we drive to
That's
this place.
Snake keepers.
we get to the spot and we start running, and Andy goes, "See that water tower up there?" And he points to like the top of Saddleback Mountain, and he goes, "Once we get to there, it's all downhill." So the first 20 minutes of this thing, I'm finding sticks to do the billy goat thing up the hill.
Oh, man.
And I was too prideful to just turn around and just
You were so pissed.
Did you
I
just
was
murder
mad.
it? Were you just flying though?
He was mad. I could
Oh,
tell.
that's awesome.
Well, Andy lied. It was a full-on lie. If it was like, slight undulations, it was a full-on hill.
But did he say it with a smirk?
No,
It wasn't
because he
like
was
I
trying
am
to.
getting you
He was
right
trying.
now.
No, it wasn't a get. He was like, well, we could run on flat. Or there's some stuff back there, and there's some shade, and now there was some eventual shade, but you had to get to the top of this stinking mountain right at the beginning. I mean, we didn't even have time to warm up. Anyway, I'm on a 1
Yeah.
week of I hate
Andy's
Andy.
dead, too.
Wait, so what's the date of the marathon?
It doesn't matter. I don't want people to know.
So how far did you run?
I don't want
heart
any. We ran about 8 miles.
8 miles?
Yeah.
And then tomorrow's
How do
15?
you-
Tomorrow's 15.
How do
I'm
you
not running
run?
with
How do
Andy.
you run with sticks? Was that just a joke?
That was the joke. That was the to
Like
get
a
up
walking
the
stick.
hill.
I
like
was
walking.
really like seeing you with sticks and going, man, I just.
But I
when
am an
ran a
American. I run with
marathon-
flags.
And a torch.
That's good. That's good. You should.
All right, this is
I
from
like to run with
Chris
burritos.
from
Now,
Chris.
can your joints handle that? I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot
Well,
of running.
when you
Are you
have a
gonna need a
joint
hip
afterwards, you can handle anything.
A joint.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
it's-
All right,
all
this is from
medicinal.
Chris from Ogallala, Nebraska.
Church?
Ottawa,
Church?
Ogallala.
Nebraska. That's
Oklahoma,
Cornhusker
Nebraska.
country, right?
There
Huh?
you go.
I don't know.
Yep, it
Uh,
is.
Just this week, I was told that one of our,
It's
a
all
leader in our
lies.
ministry, 23 years old, is dating a senior in high school. She's 17. So I confirmed it and then approached him and asked him about it. He told me yes, that was true. We had a great conversation. I told him he needed to step down because of the situation, and he was cool with it. I told him it's much like a public school teacher dating a student, and he agreed and sad that he never viewed it that way. I'm positive I handled this the right way. I respect him a ton, and we even do some things together throughout the week and have developed somewhat of a friendship, so it's hard for me to talk to him, but the conversation was full of grace and mercy on both ends. So my question is, how would you have handled this situation? Is there anything that you could have done better?
But there's no more conflict.
Yeah.
Oh, then he says at the very bottom, please do not read my name or location because of the sensitivity of the situation. You got to put that up front. You got to put that up front. Sorry about that.
That's why he didn't say the church name.
Sorry
so
about
I
that.
apologize for
So
thinking.
all we have is Chris. That's sorry.
Chris. We've made a big deal about Cornhuskers.
Now, if I was like Josh,
There's so many.
if I was like
Cornhuskers.
Josh, I would be lame, which
Yeah.
spells blame,
Blame.
and blame this on
But
Josh
you're
for
gonna,
not.
you're gonna own that.
I'm knowing that. My mistake.
But you kind of blamed him for not putting it in the right place.
No,
Yeah.
my mistake. But
Oh, really? I think we can totally blame him.
Well, in the
Yeah.
future, if you don't want me to read it.
Taffy for the cred form. If you can blame him,
No.
No, the
No.
situations are not analogous.
they're not oranges.
I heard
to
that on the
oranges.
radio today. It
Or
was the
just a
funniest-
slight undulation.
The slight undulation.
I had a slight undulation right here.
I actually do too. I had coffee this morning and my body does not have
All right,
control
so
of
let's
the
get to this
caffeine.
question.
Well, I think it's funny that he said that we have a relationship, that we have a friendship, and it was hard to talk to the person. To me, that's really interesting because it seems like it would be easier to talk to a friend than to talk to somebody you don't know to confront. I mean, I
Yeah.
just think that's
So did they handle it okay?
Well,
I
I
think
think
he handled
you
it
know what
great.
the way I read that, Matt, is this week they've developed somewhat of a friendship. That's the way. It's funny because I thought you might jump on the. I am positive I handled this in the right way.
I love
and,
that.
And then at the end he says, what could I have done better?"
yeah,
Because I
Well-
thought that was kind of funny. If you're positive you handled it the right way,
yeah. Why would you ask? He's really teachable.
I like that.
But the principle
Yeah.
is you don't let leaders and students date.
Okay, so
So-
let's
And what was the age difference again? 22 and 18.
23 and
23
17.
and
Oh my goodness,
so 6 years.
that's against the law, right?
Well, if they
Do you
have
know, I
sex.
think it wasn't it 18?
Oh.
I think it was 18.
No, 17.
17?
I'm looking.
He's
at
I
got the
apologize. I
email.
apologize.
You what?
I said he's got the email. I just was laughing. Yeah, you can't have a volunteer dating people. I mean, does the parents know?
Well, here, so it sounds like he handled the situation
Yeah, I
great.
would
He
say
asked the
good
guy to
job.
step down. Is there anything you could have done better? I think the thing you'd do better is you make it very clear from the beginning. Hey, if you're a
There's
no
leader,
Yeah.
you're not alone with kids of the opposite sex. You don't date them.
You're not
Yeah.
here to troll for chicks.
Troll
Troll.
for
But
chicks.
do you know,
for
it's very
chicks.
common.
Call
I
Taffy
think
about
it's
that.
very common that
Yeah.
leaders start dating their students. Uh-huh.
It is.
Jason, what do you think?
It's inevitable in youth ministry. You just can't get around that.
With young leaders.
Yep.
Do you think that's part of the deal, though, is we
Because-
only go to college age and young married type of people? You know, that age group is easy for us to get volunteers.
Sure.
So we set up people in college to
Sure.
Well, they
follow
got
the
they got time. They grew up in the
Yeah.
youth ministry. They're
Yeah.
excited to now get back and get involved.
Yeah.
You're looking at that. Honestly, 23 and 17 is not that 6,
Right.
7
Yeah,
years
it's
is not that
Later,
big a difference.
35 and 30, no one's going to care.
Yeah,
But in that moment, not a
or 35 and 28 if you did the math right. But whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and I think the two things. I think if the parents
You didn't do the math right.
could be brought into the loop, not
No,
necessarily by the
actually,
youth
not at
pastor,
all.
but by the guy who's doing the dating, and maybe he wants to inform his senior pastor or the person he reports to. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Throw
maybe.
some communication out there for sure.
Yeah, here's
Yeah.
how I handled the situation,
Blog.
but you got to make sure that that's all done up front
You probably
because
wanna-
it almost went with the way he writes it. And I told him how it's viewed, and he agreed and was sad he never viewed it that way. Well, if he never viewed it that way, then the expectations weren't clear up front. So you make the expectations clear up front.
Yeah.
And once again, I am sorry for reading your name. All right, here's
Okay.
another question. This is from Chuck Odom, Rivertown Church, Columbus, Georgia. This
Isn't
goes
that
back
a guy
a little
on
bit.
the
Hey.
Lakers? Lamar.
Lamar Odom.
Never mind.
Yeah.
Chuck.
Chuck's
Chuck
uncle.
Taylor, Lamar Odom,
In
basketball.
episode 38, you answered a question regarding Bill Hybels' comments on being at a basketball game and not counting that as work. This led to a comment made by Doug about writing everything down in Outlook as a means of accountability and precaution.
Thank you for chronicling.
This comment
38, quite a while ago.
This comment, along with the practice of another youth pastor here in town who documents every conversation that he has with anyone, anytime, caused me to begin to think about my practice of, well, not documenting anything.
Good
So
practice.
my first question is, what would you suggest is a best practice for tracking your time? How detailed should this documentation be?
Minute by minute's not too much.
If you can do it in 12-second increments, I think that would be ideal.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think you have to document every conversation all the time?
No, that's neurotic.
I mean, that feels a little broken to me,
Yeah,
too.
well,
Neurotic?
I don't know if it's neurotic.
Oh,
I mean,
neurotic. Okay.
What'd you say?
I thought you said erotic.
Matt's like,
Well,
yes.
maybe I'm still on the last
You're
last
on the
email.
23-year-old and 17-year-old.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, I said neurotic.
Okay, I didn't-
No, but maybe the guy's been. I mean, maybe the guy has had trouble before, and
Right.
and so maybe he's got a really bad memory, and somebody confronted him on something, and he wanted to write everything down.
Fair enough.
But
I mean, I'm all for taking
that's
notes.
neurotic.
And I mean, it's kind of trendy now to have a little notepad with you and kind of journal your thoughts and your conversations. I mean,
They have really
Trendy?
cute ones right now at
no,
Old
it's
Navy.
super trendy right now. Everyone's
Bought
got
one yesterday.
moleskin little journals and tablets and notebooks.
Oh.
It's totally coming
Old
back.
Man in the Sea.
So is
That
that
guy
why you
used
do it?
one.
Because it's trendy?
No, I don't do it. I think it's stupid.
Oh, okay.
But
I have, like,
but I do
50,
keep track.
But
Did
he
I
does
start?
blog, which is essentially the same thing.
But I
It's
do
his
keep
electronic
track of my
moleskin.
time. I keep track of my time in Outlook and in Excel. Like projects, I put in Excel, and then obviously schedule.
And you say
in
how much
Outlook.
time you've put to
Yeah,
each project?
absolutely.
I don't do that. I should.
Yeah,
Huh.
Yeah.
yeah. Done it for 12 weeks. It's been good.
Yeah. About the same amount of time you wore that shirt?
Yep,
Yeah.
3 years.
Whatever happened with that little shirt experiment? We never heard about that.
Oh yeah, what were the results?
the
You were
shirt
going to
experiment?
share the
Okay, here,
results.
let's
once it was
pause
done.
for a second,
Oh.
and let's
Finish
let's
this
get
guy
this
first.
question. Jason, do you track your time?
No.
Not at all?
I used to work for a pastor that did.
Yeah.
They had me track every 15
Well-
minutes of the day.
15 minutes.
And don't you think?
15.
Don't you think the senior pastor is tracking your time, even if you don't? He or she is.
Well, it
Really?
depends on how cool they are.
I don't know.
A lot of senior pastors, or the people watching the show, are subconsciously tracking their
Well,
youth pastors'
here's the
time.
Well, they
deal.
have an opinion about it, that's for sure.
The
Absolutely.
church that Matt grew up in, when I was Matt's youth pastor, I was there for 11 years. There was 2 or 3 pastors who had affairs
Yes.
and some accusations. So I'm in my 20s. You know, I was there from 18 to 29 or something like that. And I learned, you know what? People are going to accuse me of something. You're going to have to fight with my calendar. So I would just, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily document every conversation, but I would go, you know,
Absolutely.
Josh and I kind of did a spontaneous lunch yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, type that in and put those markings so that if somebody comes back 2 years later and go, well, where were you in this weekend? I go, well, here's, you know,
Exactly.
I got it.
That's assuming we can find your Outlook archives.
That's true. That's true.
But
And-
a part of it's good too, not just for accountability's sake with other people, but it's also good to say, where am I spending my time?
Absolutely.
You know, am I?
Yeah.
And that's probably what your pastor was doing, Jason, with the 15 minutes deal, is
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
see, you know, how much time do you waste and how much time, you know.
You
Yeah.
should spend at least 1 hour of every day on each of the purposes.
So there's 5.
And then the other 5 hours are spent answering email,
Blogging.
blogging, playing
Talking about blogging with people.
NCAA brackets or whatever.
Bracket.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd say best practices, I think you
Do
block
something.
out your, you know what, you block out your time. At the very end of PDYM, in appendix, I have a little time chart of it. What's a way to keep track of your time based on your goals and your roles, and then your kind of your to-do list. That would be one example. I just think at the end of the day, you just go back over and make sure that you have some accountability of how you spent the day.
Do you think it's interesting to think about it the other way? Instead of tracking how much you work, you know, to please a boss or whatever, but how about to make sure that you have margin and that you have time off and that you're scheduling time with your family too? So it's not just making sure I'm getting my projects and fulfilling my salary duties,
Yeah.
but just to make sure that you don't have so many duties for your job and you don't
Yeah.
have anything,
Yeah.
any relational time either.
Well, the time chart in the back of PDYM has that. You take a look at your week and you go, here are the programs that are non-negotiable. That
Yeah.
I'm going to church, Wednesday night, you know, whatever, staff meeting. When am I going to do my family time, date night,
Right.
kids games, things like that? You block those out. Then you got to kind of see how much time is left in your schedule. Then based on the time that's left, what are my goals for the week? You know, how do those fit with the roles that I'm supposed to do at the church? You know, I was talking to Jason today. You know, he's a great youth pastor, so what does his church do? Well, would you also lead worship? Would you take this in, you know, when you're good at what you do, churches tend to throw more responsibility on you. And at some point you look at your week and you go, well, I'd love to. I just don't know where that's going to happen.
And that's where what matters most comes in.
What matters most?
What
Is that a
matters
book plug?
Oh,
Is that a
wow.
book plug?
Andy?
Yeah.
You know what? You know what?
BDYM and
You know what Jason said to me today? Because now the What Matters Most, I'm starting to get letters from people and stuff like that. Jason says to me today, because of your book, What Matters Most, I have to now, and it was like, it was my fault. It was be lame. Be lame. And then,
He was blaming it.
because I forced him to read that book.
Hey, really quick, as an aside, would you count, I don't know if we've
1,
adequately
2,
answered this.
3,
Would you count
4,
the hours
5,
at a service
7.
as part of your work hours?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, of course you would.
Great.
That's not. You would not count that as.
Well,
is there any youth worker that wouldn't count that as
to youth
time?
pastors.
But
Says
wait,
senior pastor.
are you talking about church service or youth ministry service? What do you think he's saying?
A service where you were working. That's what I think.
So
you're
what if
talking
you
about.
go to church with Misha?
To worship
Yeah,
the Lord?
yeah.
No,
Okay.
I wouldn't.
I think that's what he was.
You were talking about worship.
I'm talking about you have to be at 12 things during the week. One of those is a church service where you don't have any responsibility, but you're there as a youth pastor. You're still going to get.
Yeah, I also wouldn't count
Conversations
my
and-
small group time.
See, this is what I'm asking.
If I was sitting in a small group, not if I'm leading one with students, yeah, that's work time. But if I'm sitting in a small group, I wouldn't count that as work.
Great. That's what I want to know.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're so close to the margin of 40 hours a week, and you're like, I'm at 38, I got to count church. You probably need to look at your week anyway.
Yeah, I mean, some people are slackers and need to work more, and some people work too much
Yeah.
and need to work less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the schedule thing in the back of PDYM is so good. I think Stephen Covey ripped it off and made a whole system out of it.
It's just
There was 6 highly effective habits. He added one more, put his own twist.
That is funny, Miguel.
So-
That's kind of insider, but I have
'Cause
been very public
nobody has a
about.
Franklin Covey.
No, I said I learned all of that from Stephen Covey's.
Oh, you did?
highly.
No, I wasn't even referencing that.
Highly
I promise
effective
you.
people?
Yes.
I was trying
I
to.
thought it was a good bit.
Oh, I thought it was a good bit too. Yeah,
Oh, that's
7 habits
funny.
of highly effective people.
But that you don't have 7 habits in the back
No,
of
no,
the thing.
no. It's just a calendar.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about the calendar.
All right, let's go to Ken Leslie. Ken Leslie's one of our PDYM guys.
PDYM guy.
PDYM,
This
yeah.
is the show.
What's a PDYM guy? One of the
He's a
gathering
state
dudes?
mentor.
State mentor.
State mentor at PDYMcommunity.com.
That's right.
Just
To be a state mentor, you have to know everything about youth ministry.
Yep, be an expert.
You know
Yes.
what? Yeah, to be a state mentor, we say page 111, and you have to go chapter 5, concentric circles.
It starts off with
Perfect.
a sentence. Be lame.
There's an illustration about your
That's
mother-in-law.
right. You don't have any illustrations about your mother-in-law.
That's true. I love my mother-in-law. Okay, here we go.
You should love your mother-in-law.
When students come to a main ministry program as friends of other students, they feel comfortable and connected right away. Everything seems all right. But what about those students whose parents go to the church but have never come to the student ministry, and when they do, those students are alone? Sometimes they're Christian kids, but many times they're not followers of Christ. So how do we get them connected right away? I just had a parent ask me how to get their 17-year-old daughter plugged into the ministry, but she's never even been to our church before. She doesn't go to a high school represented in our ministry, so the chances of her knowing someone here are extremely slim. I told her to have her daughter bring 1 or 2 friends with her so she wouldn't feel alone. Yes, the students in the ministry will go out of their way to introduce themselves and try to invite her in, but if she is alone, she's already starting the night, and she's a little introverted anyway, on a bad note. I'm just looking for some practical suggestions of things to have in place to help make students' first exposure to the ministry be a positive one. This is especially important as the church as a whole begins growing and more families begin coming to our church without something to connect these students with. I think the student ministry will just stay the same even if the church grows. Good question.
Sarah Boyd.
Sarah Boyd.
Yep.
That is the answer, Sarah Boyd.
That is the answer.
Let's go to the next.
I haven't seen Sarah
Question.
Boyd since high school, and I agree with that.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things we did for years is at a program we would have some of our student leaders or some of our students, we would challenge them to be more than just greeters that were at a door and handed a program, but we would say, hey, your job is to look for people standing alone and go and talk to them and say hello and invite them to your table or whatever. And that was a huge, I think Sarah Boyd was like one of our first people to do that.
Yeah, didn't we call it like an integrator?
Our connectors
be
ministry.
Is it
amazing.
integrator, Andy, when Andy was in
integrators.
high school? Yeah, the idea is that anybody can greet. And no offense to anybody that greets, but
Well,
it's
not anybody.
well, most people.
Remember
Mike Mitchell.
Mike Mitchell?
I don't know.
Mike
That's a
Mitchell,
great
here's the
story.
story.
Yeah.
He's a greeter. We do this thing on getting involved in ministry, give kids all kinds of opportunities. And as kids are walking into the youth room,
He's a little bitter.
He hand the kids bullet, and the idea is you hand him a bullet, and you say, "Hey, welcome to Saddleback Lady," or something like that.
Nice.
And he goes to hand.
Who you got?
Jana. He goes to hand the bulletin to somebody.
Hey, we're doing the podcast right now.
Those of you listening,
Hey, wait, you can
Matt
almost
just-
hear. You
Matt
can
just-
almost hear.
Matt just answered
Oh.
my phone.
We'll call you back in a
We
little
can
bit.
hear you.
Yeah.
I really want to
best.
know the end of this story, though.
Well, I
All
know
right,
it'd
so-
be nice if
Yeah.
Matt wouldn't answer.
Well, I'm sorry. I
But
just
I
haven't
do
talked to
like
Jana in a
Jana.
couple
I haven't
days.
talked to her in a
Okay.
long time.
So Mike Mitchell standing at the door greeting,
Yeah.
and he goes to greet. Not every. Some kids come in, they already got a bulletin, they put it in their pocket, they go out to go to the bathroom, they come back in again. So he had a couple kids walk by, didn't take a bulletin. So another kid comes by and didn't take a bulletin. Goes, "Take it, damn it!"
No way.
Right when you and I were walking.
Yeah, Matt and I are like,
No
"Whoa." Oh, yeah.
way.
I mean, you know,
Oh
it
my
was-
gosh.
Yeah.
take one, damn it.
So there's a lesson. There's a lesson here. Not everybody can be a
Not
greeter.
everybody.
Yeah.
Not everybody.
So anyway,
Oh my gosh.
and not everybody can be. He was a greeter, he just wasn't a good one.
He was great on the guys trip.
So you had greeters and then you had integrators.
Then there were people that had a little more confidence with their personality.
Yeah.
More outgoing.
Well,
and-
not necessarily. You could have a confident introvert do it, but
Just
the
a little
idea
more
was somebody
hospitable.
who would, as opposed to just say, "Hi, what's your name? What school do you go to?" "Oh,
Yeah.
great, bye." Would be, "Hey, come sit over with me." It would just
Yeah,
take
yeah.
that person and then include them or connect them. Because
Yeah.
anybody can say hi. It takes a special student that you've actually trained and encouraged
Yeah.
and kind of handed that mantle of leadership to.
You think a volunteer could potentially own this too, or at least supplement students doing it? I mean, students are obviously key, but
Well, there's something different when a student does it and when an adult leader does it. When an
Yeah.
adult does it, I mean, the adults need to be doing it, I think.
And
they
I think
need to have this
teenagers
attitude.
almost expect adults to be doing
But
it.
teenagers
Yeah.
expect, and and they'll even tell you that. Well, it's just your job. That's why you're here.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean,
Which
even
is somewhat
even
true.
volunteers.
yeah.
But if Ken
You're
was to
supposed to
get
do this.
4 or 5 kids and just say, "Okay, look, here's your job. Your job is you work together if you want.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody by themselves, and you stay with them the whole night, you don't just greet them.
Yeah.
You stay
Yeah.
with them the whole night. You introduce them to your group of friends. If there's
Yeah.
more than 4 or 5, then pull those others in there. You guys figure out how to do this. But every
Right.
Sunday morning or every Wednesday night, Jason, would that work? What do you guys do?
I was gonna say, can everyone hear me?
Oh,
I
Yeah.
think so, yeah.
I can hear you fine.
Cody's Cody's group. Alex Boyd, Bowen, all those guys, the 9th grade guys at my church, just recently, they brought this kid in. One new kid came, and all of them rallied around this kid. They started chanting his name during announcements, like the sports clap and all that stuff, and
Sweet.
just doing everything. And this kid gave a testimony 3 weeks later that he's never been more accepted in his entire life
No
anywhere.
way.
And that
That's
now
cool.
that immediately this is his home, a total introvert kid. And he just felt so loved, and it was the students that did it. I bark at my leaders all day to make people feel welcome. Not 1/10 as effective as the students.
Very
Point
cool.
proven.
That's
Very
good.
cool.
That's
and
good.
with all of Cody's buddies and stuff, so that's cool.
That's good.
Neat.
Those are a good
Yeah.
group
It's a
of
good
boys.
group of boys, yeah.
Yeah, for my son, who's in 9th grade, went to junior high where Jason is the youth pastor. So that group of
There's
boys.
a connection there.
Yeah, and some of them still go to Jason's youth group. Some of them are at Saddleback, and
A lot of them go to both, yeah.
yeah. Cody would rather go to Jason's,
Not
but
true.
I don't
Not true.
I don't let him.
That's funny. Well, so moral of the story: teach him to clap.
Teach them to clap.
That's
Sports
right.
club.
Get that slap
Sports
going.
clap. Yeah.
So something I like is the photo wall, the ever-evolving photo wall. So you keep a Polaroid camera
Original
on hand,
masterpiece.
and when people new come in and you get them connected with a group of kids, you take their picture, you put it up on the photo wall, and the next week they feel like they're already a part of something.
Yeah.
Well,
They're already included by it.
and the photo wall is a great place where you can find those loners. Because you
Oh,
walk,
yeah, 'cause
you
they have
walk
something to
into a
look at.
room, you got something to do.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
This is from Andrew Lovato,
That's
Delta
so
First
smart.
Mr.
Assembly
Roboto.
of God, Delta, Colorado. Matt's dead mom jokes are harsh, but always crack me up, i.e.
Wow.
episode 44,
Wow.
Good Moms.
Dead
Just went
mom
right to
jokes.
dead mom.
Somebody
Dead
said,
mom.
good
Whoa.
moms take pictures. Matt responds, I wouldn't know about that.
Oh my gosh, was that when my mom was here taking a picture through the window? Wow.
Oh,
I was
that's
so
brilliant.
self-involved I didn't even hear that.
That's okay. That's okay.
We're
Yeah.
used to that.
I was
Well,
busy
anyway,
posing.
Andrew
For the pictures.
Andrew here talks about his
just easy
school that
humor.
he works with. There's been a lot of witchcraft and suicide and alcohol
Speaking
and
of Matt's mom, where does this?
no, he then goes on to write about what is some of his core. He was just basically telling a story that the principal at this school allowed his core group to come in and walk around the school for really 2 hours and just pray for teachers and
That's very
parents
cool.
and just kind of, do that. And he was just saying, we're continuing to pray over this, but I thought I'd let you know that some things like this can be allowed and would like to encourage other churches to try to do the same.
To pray.
Yeah, to pray.
Go into the schools. Go into
See
the
you at
culture.
the pole.
Yes.
This is from Mark Cox at Genoa.
Cox. That feels
Genoa.
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 Genoa
Like
Baptist
Genoa.
Church,
Oh.
Columbus, Ohio. He basically shared a failure story that just happened to him,
good.
and he was
Join
saying
me.
he was emceeing something. He says, as I was introducing the next act, I noticed a few girls in the front row talking. So simply as a joke, I decided to point them out and embarrass them. I proceeded to say,
Excellent.
"You girls just love to," and I was trying to say chit chat. The only thing that made it out of my mouth was the word that sounds a lot like chit. I got so caught up in the fact that I just said it and didn't say chat. I just stood on stage not knowing how to recover. Josh says he didn't remember how he recovered. I remember mine. I stood there like a moron, staring at the crowd who was gasping at my mistake. How do you recover from something like
I
that?
guess
That's
probably
where
Oh my
in your
gosh,
back
we
your back
need to post
pocket
that
you need that book.
Pitching
Everybody
tents
poops.
video.
Oh,
Do you
yeah.
remember that?
Yeah,
Nice.
dude, it's fun.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. Just
Yes.
when your words get
Yep. He
Cross.
says, thank you for the failure episode. It sounds strange, but it helped a ton.
I really liked it. I think there might be some, I don't know, something we could go to that well again. Not necessarily failures, but where we all came with 5 things.
Yeah.
I like that.
And
Will I get locked out if I go to use the restroom?
Yes.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
And
Of
never
course.
welcome back on the
Oh
show.
my goodness, we have wow.
Unless you have IBS.
I don't have time.
If Andy can hold it, and Andy's notorious for
That's
going to the
actually
bathroom every
true.
10 minutes. If he can do this would be nothing. Unless you cry pee.
This is from Jonathan Page,
But remember, someone just
Francis
died from not peeing.
Asbury,
Just
United
died.
Methodist Church, Virginia Beach, Virginia. I'm stoked about the PDYM Student Leadership
The
Conference in
thing.
July. I would like to bring our team from Virginia, but the airfare, lodging, rental car costs will probably be prohibitive. Are there any?
Prohibitive?
Cost prohibitive is a
Yeah.
very,
Are there
very
prohibitive.
Are
That
there
means they
any
can't
training options for student leaders on the
Not
East Coast,
prohibited?
or would PDYM consider making an East Coast swing?
Very cool.
We would consider, but no, we won't. And also,
Next question.
yeah, Jay
It's
Strack.
prohibitive for us to go there, really. I mean, that's the thing.
Jay Strack
Yeah.
is
Yeah, Jay Strack.
Jay
does some
Strack
cool
is in
stuff
Orlando,
Over that way.
so
yeah.
he's there. Although his is wonderful, great, incredible, but it is much more expensive. You're leaving to go to the bathroom, Jason? Put in.
46
Okay,
episodes.
dude.
last
There's not
episode.
a chance. There's not a chance she's coming back in.
maybe
I
she
didn't tell her I'd do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Put on
Get-
your-
maybe
Put the
she
headphones
truly
on.
has IBS.
No, she's mentally weak, Matt.
She
Yeah.
is mentally weak.
She's
Just
drinking
have
a
to
lot
go to
of
the
water.
bathroom.
Yeah.
That's not even. The bottle's still 2/3
I'm
full.
on my 4th one.
I don't know. I'm on my 4th propel. You don't see me run to the bathroom.
Okay, here we go.
Man, I gotta
So,
pee, though.
hey, speaking of Josh, PDYM student
Yeah, so-
leadership, when are we?
PDY Student Leadership
July
is July 10th through the 13th.
10th through the 13th.
And
That's cool.
registration's open now. It's actually only $99, but you do have to get out here. That's kind of the hard part of it is if you're traveling from a distance, you're gonna have to make a financial commitment to this.
Yeah.
And wasn't there already a student leadership conference last summer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we did one last summer too. It was really
We did a
fun.
How
great
could I
one.
not remember? Oh, I taught at it for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, you were
And you
one
did
of
a
the-
great job.
One of the highest rated speakers.
You
We
did a-
actually talked about it this
Yeah,
week.
well, a 20-minute speaker.
That's
That's
next
very
level.
important.
Student leadership.
So
That's
Well,
funny.
you were in Australia last year with your youth group.
Yes.
there you go.
Because this would have been something you'd have brought kids to.
A lot of-
Right.
Well,
lot
yeah.
of-
So
You could stay at Jason's church if you come out. Just
Save money.
Sure, why not? They got a new sanctuary.
Sleep in the trailers.
Just sleep in
There
the,
you go.
in the sanctuary.
No, but we've talked about ways to get PDYM outside of Saddleback in different locations. I think there's some cool stuff potentially happening in the future, but
It'll all
as
be
of
up
this
on
moment,
YouTube.
student leadership is here. There's great resources. Obviously, Andy would like a plug for our student leadership resources on the website too.
Yeah.
But
help. I'm a student leader.
Yeah,
Help.
Yeah.
And what?
I was going to say student leaders or learner student edition also.
Leaders or learners student edition.
Discounts if you buy them in packs of 5. Andy, are we good? Okay. So
Kevin Massey treated it like a missions trip last year. And so all
Right,
these
that's
kids
true.
had
Well, guys
to
been
raise their own money.
they raised their own money, been
Yeah.
working on it.
Raised their money,
When
flew
we
out
took our
here.
kids, when we took our kids to Orlando, they did the same thing. They had to raise money, and that was
it's
great.
a big deal. I mean, we've tried
Yeah.
to keep costs down. It's $100 per person. That's all we're getting.
Yeah.
So, but we just realized, hotels, you're gonna have to pack them into a room and try to split the cost. And
Yeah.
we provide a few meals, but you're still gonna have to buy a couple meals. But you can go to Mexico. You can go inner city LA. There's a lot of stuff to do around here. if
Or you can go
want.
to Disneyland as well.
Or Disney.
Disneyland, the front end,
Hollywood.
student leadership,
I was
and in
there
Mexico.
on Monday. Disney is so fun.
All right. He says, I'm 20 years old. I've been working in this church a little more than a year. We started small, but we've grown numerically in addition to spiritually. Initially, I was able to goof off and be fun with our not large group. But as we grow well into the double digits, I find our Sunday night meetings to at times be out of hand. And because I am a weak disciplinarian, the burden falls on an adult volunteer who is now less enthusiastic because she is seen as the enforcer. What are some methods I can employ to ease the burden on her and other volunteers while still
Oh,
being able to
man.
maintain my fun-loving style?
Be the bad cop.
Oh, goodness gracious.
So here would be an example of being a disciplinarian. We're just not
Tough-
going to let her
this is
back
tough
in.
love.
This is tough love.
Yeah.
I'm in an awkward situation. I'm just going to throw that out there.
Okay,
I don't have the relationship with Natalie, and she asked me personally.
that's okay. But you didn't agree
so
to
are
it.
you going to
I
be
d-
mentally weak, or are you going to be mentally tough?
Wait, are you
I'm
going to
going
say
to be
you
a
did
strong
it?
disciplinarian.
There you
you go.
go.
There
This
you
is
go.
punishment for leaving the show.
Yeah, she knew what it was.
Honestly.
All right, now she's just being
This
obnoxious.
Is, this
so.
is tough, though.
Not
I'll
as
be honest
obnoxious.
with you. Natalie's a nice girl.
Well, here's a perfect
Natalie is a
example.
nice
Here's a
girl.
perfect example. It is tough to do the right thing.
It's always tough
It's
to do.
tough to do the right
This
thing.
is like an object lesson right here.
Exactly. This is like
very
in the
good.
Lord's timing. This is perfect.
It is.
I need to submit to the leadership and authorities
That's right.
above me
Oh,
and
that's
back
that's
what's
weak.
happening here.
All
But
right,
you know
Jason.
What? Each you're going to stand or fall on your own.
Jason,
You are accountable for your actions.
I
Oh,
am.
well,
You are King Supertone,
Oh, gosh.
original drummer for the Supertones, famous all over the world. You're coming to be a youth pastor,
Yeah.
and now you don't want to be the disciplinarian. So now your volunteers have to be bad cops. Okay, what do you say to this person here?
Yeah, it always comes down. Boring answer, obviously, but it always comes down to doing the right thing. You have to confront. She just slipped a note under the door.
Don't pay attention to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's hard.
Just ignore it.
Yeah, you're focused.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Come on.
Yeah,
Do
you
the right
just-
thing. Come on. Come on, Spike
Jason,
Lee.
Jason, you come from a charismatic persuasion. You would think that you'd be a little more spirit-led.
Just in this moment, I feel like raising my hands. I don't know
All
why.
right.
No, always do the right thing. Confront and love. You have to talk to people. It's never fun to be the bad guy, but
So even if your personality leans to the, whatever.
Always,
not-
yeah, and I think it helps obviously if you pull the person aside, alone, one on one, and talk gently to them in love.
To-
You can't lose. You
And
can't
to
lose.
dish it off to a volunteer who doesn't want to do it is the weakest thing I've ever heard. in
To
my
a
life.
bad cop
Cowardly.
volunteer, even.
That's
yeah.
the weakest. That is.
It's not the weakest thing you've ever heard in your life. Let's do this.
It's the
Jonathan,
weakest thing I've heard in the
I would
last
say
10
this.
minutes.
Jonathan, you are 20 years old. You're a young youth worker. If you're going to last in youth ministry, you have to learn. You have to learn about discipline.
Yeah.
And where there is discipline, there is discipleship, and those go
Yeah.
hand in hand. And part of the ways that we disciple kids is with holding them to some boundaries. So
Well, and oftentimes, don't you think kids push students and whatnot, push boundaries just to make sure that you
Absolutely.
care? I mean, I know at least my kids
Yeah,
personally,
you
in our
have
family,
to have
they sure
structure.
do that.
You have to have structure. You have to have rules. You have to have boundaries.
Yeah.
And if it's a big crowd, I mean, he said it's growing into the double digits and it's bigger than he's had before and stuff like that, then you say something in front of everybody, you make a few jokes in front of everybody without pointing and singling people out, but then if there's a couple, you got to pull them to the side,
and
or
say, hey, Stop the chit chat.
Stop the chat. Not the, yeah. You know, or tell them not to come back. Because I will never let one student ruin a program for everybody else.
You know why he moves to that voice? That's his mocking voice.
It is.
He's heard me teach so much, and what I say is, you know, you have to discipline. You never let one kid ruin a program for everybody else.
It was a mocking
but I
voice, or
agree,
was it
though.
just the Doug Fields soft, sensitive voice?
I agree.
Like your soft,
but I
sensitive
agree with
hair.
that. I've had people at my Bible study. I made one guy sit in the backyard. It was freezing. Well, California freezing.
California
but
freeze, so it was
freezing.
74.
It was still freezing. Some
Drop
guy
the
interrupted
72.
his sister 3 times in Bible study, which I don't like any student to interrupt any other student because it's hard enough to talk. And so I told the guy he had to sit outside for like an hour. It was beautiful.
Wow. I'll
Yeah.
be remembered.
Yeah.
I'll be reminded never to interrupt you.
Yes.
All right.
No, another student. So,
Okay.
Tim Bush, First Church of God, Effingham, Illinois.
No way.
Effingham? Wow. Oh my goodness.
Am I saying
That's
it right?
awesome. I
Yeah,
think
that's,
so.
That's right.
I want to live in that city. That's awesome.
EFFING,
Effing.
That's beautiful.
Ham.
HAM.
There you go.
Effing
I just
him.
finished watching episode 45. I have to admit, it was one of the best I've watched. Some of the comments applied so much to where I am. I am on staff as a full-time youth pastor in my church.
What doesn't
This-
apply to people in Effingham?
Hand me a piece of.
The senior pastor resigned in April of 2006. We have a full-time worship pastor. She does not have the gift of preaching, so I fill the pulpit twice a month along with other duties, i.e.
Wow.
visitation, counseling, leadership meetings, etc. I find it so hard to balance everything that I have going on. For instance, I was supposed to perform a baby dedication on a Sunday morning and forgot to inform the proper people to prepare everything. Needless to say, I scrambled Saturday afternoon after a funeral to prep everything for that morning. I feel as though I am failing at prioritizing. The problem is
Sounds
that my
like it.
youth ministry is being neglected because I'm filling so many different shoes. I feel the burden to assist the church in its greatest area
that's
of
good.
need, but I don't feel like I'm doing anything well. How do I prioritize the needs of the church from the needs of the youth ministry, or should I even be concerned with the adult ministries?
Isn't the adults more important?
The adults are the only ones that tithe, so forget the kids.
Jason, does this sound like your situation a little bit?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of.
I
people's
just got asked
situation,
to, be the interim worship pastor at my church, and so I'm Sunday morning. I'm doing the worship up top, and then running down and preaching and running youth ministry.
too. Oh wow.
So it's tough to juggle. But I mean, what I did with my ministry is I have had countless meetings this last month with my teams, all my interns, all my youth leaders, to just step up and just to own it and to take it.
That's
and
good.
what I love about this show when I listen is I hear you guys all the time say, "Hey, prove it to them that you don't have to be a control freak by not being there." You know, when you guys talk about
yeah.
that, like, okay, well then let them run with something. Don't babysit and watch over their shoulder. So, really give it to them. Really let them take the reins and let them fail and let them learn and disciple them and talk them through it. So,
But you would also say this. You would say, hand it to them. Explain to them the current season and the craziness of your life, and say, "This is yours. I'm giving this to
yeah,
you."
absolutely.
Don't let it I think what could happen here is you kind of just let the wheels fall off of it, and it eventually crashes. And the volunteers didn't own this thing. Well, you never really gave it to them.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, you got to hand it over, and then let them run with it. That's good.
Well, as we mentioned a little bit earlier when I was introducing you, I said a lot of times what the church does is takes a strong player, and when there is a need, let's get the strong player to meet those needs at the expense of his or her youth ministry.
And potentially calling and
Yeah.
job description is out the window at some point.
And sometimes I think you have to stand up and say, boy, I would love, what I have said at Saddleback, many times over 15 years is I will do this out of loyalty, not out of calling.
Mhm.
I feel
That's a good
called
line.
to be a youth pastor, but I feel loyal to this church, and so for a short season I will step in. Or I have done things when I first got there and I had junior high and high school, I took over the college ministry. I used that as an opportunity to hire Matt. Matt was like a volunteer intern or something like that, and I said, well, I will take over the college ministry as it's growing, but I need to bring Matt on into a paid
That's
position.
good. Yeah.
And so you use, when they're pushing you for change, you use that as a leverage. Because, Jason, all your years at the church, your pastor hasn't come up to you and said, hey, you're the only paid youth person here, Jason. Would you like us to hire you more people? They're not going to do that. So there are prime times where you can say, boy, I'd love to be able to do that, but not at the expense of the ministry. So there is that balance. This is a tough one, Tim, and you did a good job articulating the question. But, poor guy, you're going from a funeral to a baby dedication to preaching. You have to visitation, counseling, leadership meetings, all this stuff.
All in Effingham, yeah.
All in Effingham. That's right.
I'm sensing a double entendre. It's a good thing he didn't get his notes confused from the funeral to the baby dedication.
Well, the first time I read this fast, I thought that's what it was a failure story, like he was preparing the funeral for a baby dedication.
Oh.
Okay.
But this is one of those, you can only run at this level of octane for a short season of time. And if you don't pull back and evaluate and bring the elders in or whoever there's somebody, if the senior pastor resign, there's some governing person or body or something that needs to chime in on
this. But the
this.
clock is ticking on your own health, your own margin, your own.
Yep. So, yeah. Matt, you want to add anything?
Clocks keep ticking and ticking and never stop ticking, so I don't really understand.
The car's going to run out of gas. Do we like that?
Oh,
better?
like a bomb, like a time bomb.
There you go. Countdown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's ticking louder.
Louder and louder.
And then
No, I agree with all that. I mean, I say, aren't the adults more important? Part as a joke and part as you have to ask the tough questions. I mean, that's to prioritize. Prioritizing is tough. And obviously, God is going to do something in your ministry, in your heart, in your life through this situation. And that's the question you need to ask. What's more important right now? And it's going to hurt. But what's life without a little mental pain?
That's right.
Well, and I think there are some things you're not going to be able to do. You can't do it, and because somebody's going to have to pay for something. So your family's going to pay, your spouse is going to pay. You can't do everything. You can't do everything.
At the funeral, that guy's already paid
the ultimate price.
I wanted to say, like, in my situation, the great thing, my senior pastor has just been so gracious for me to step up and do this. What I've loved about it is it's communicating to the students that we're not just some kind of youth ministry island, that we're a part of the bigger church, so we're part of something bigger than us. Yeah. So it's like, let's serve the church when we can. And then also the fact that he gives me so much just because I'm doing this. It's like I can go have the 2-hour lunches with my family and help put down the babies to naps and stuff like that, help my wife and, cut out earlier on certain days, get in later on certain days. So if you can at least talk about that up front and say like, hey, this is my life and my family comes first, and but hey, I'll help do this and I'm all in.
Yeah.
So it's good. And it's for a season.
Yeah.
This ends in June.
Yeah.
For me doing this interim worship pastor's job. So
that's great.
So it's good.
That's good. Great input. Hey, we're out of time.
That's it.
Let's bring Natalie in and see if she wants to come in and say something.
Was I supposed to do that?
Natalie, are you back yet?
That was so weak.
All right.
Hello?
Hey, Natalie.
Anyway,
Did you not?
Write your questions.
Sorry.
Oh, look at the new guy giving Natalie a hard time.
Headphones on. He doesn't even
Podcast at simplyyouthministry.com.
Write us this week.
What else, Josh? Anything else?
PDY Student Leadership. PDY Student Leadership Conference.
Student Leadership.
That's what I heard.
Enjoy
All right.
March Madness. We will see you on Friday.
And episode 50, we got something very special.
Oh, look out. You will
Very
not
special.
believe it.
Do we really,
You will
or are we
not
just
believe it.
saying
No,
that?
we're just saying that. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, this was 46, right?
And we got 4 shows figured out.
47, 48, 49. So we got a month to figure it out.
Fine.
It is
will
going to be so great.
Amazing. Bye.